Oh, be quiet. Yeah. Yeah. I'm over here, cat. Yeah. Make the tabernacle. Well, this is the actual tent itself, the movable tent. Yeah. Make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of finely twisted linen and blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, with cherubim worked into them by a skilled craftsman. Again, no word on how they know what a cherubim looks like. They just do somehow. All the curtains are to be this. Oh, where am I? To be the same size, 28 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Be quiet. Join 5 of the curtains together and do the same with the other 5. Make loops of blue material along the edge of the end curtain in one set, and do the same with the end curtain in the other set. Make 50 loops on one curtain and 50 loops on the end curtain of the other set, with the loops opposite each other. Then make 50 gold clasps, and use them to fasten the curtains together so the tabernacle is a unit. Make curtains of goat hair. Remember all these stuff he told Moses to get at the beginning of all this? Make curtains of goat hair for the tent over the tabernacle, 11 altogether. All 11 curtains are to be the same size, 30 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Yeah. Yep, there she goes. Join 5 of the curtains together into one set and the other 6 into another set. Fold the 6th curtain double at the front of the tent. Make 50 loops along the edge of the end curtain in one set and also along the edge of the end curtain in the other set. Then make 50 bronze clasps and put them in the loops to fasten the tent together as a unit. As for the additional length of the tent curtains, the half curtain that is left over is to hang down at the rear of the tabernacle. The tent curtains will be a cubit longer on both sides. What is left will hang over the sides of the tabernacle so as to cover it. Make the tent a covering of ram skins dyed red, and over that a covering of hides of sea cows. I am not an architect or a builder or a weaver or anything like that. So in terms of the process by which this gets put together, I'm not going to be able to help much. I already said that we lack the full instructions for how to do this. We don't have the patterns that Moses saw on the mountain. So without that, these text-based instructions are not going to be complete for us to be able to actually recreate this thing in its entirety. So if you really are interested in some of the measurements and mechanics of this, I'm not the guy who can help you unlock all the depth there. Okay, I'm just not. Make upright frames of acacia wood for the tabernacle. This is what's going to hold the curtains up. Each frame is to be 10 cubits long and a cubit and a half wide, with 2 projections set parallel to each other. Make all the frames of the tabernacle in this way. Make 20 frames for the south side of the tabernacle, and make 40 silver bases to go under them, 2 bases for each frame, 1 under each projection. For the other side, the north side of the tabernacle, make 20 frames and 40 silver bases, 2 under each frame. The tabernacle was always set up facing east. So it's a rectangular in nature. So the long sides are on the north and south sides, and the entrance is to the east. Make 6 frames for the far end, that is, the west end of the tabernacle, and make 2 frames for the corners at the far end. At these two corners they must be doubled from the bottom all the way to the top, and fitted into a single ring. Both shall be like that. So there will be 8 frames and 16 silver bases, 2 under each frame. Also make crossbars of acacia wood. 5 for the frames on one side of the tabernacle, 5 for those on the other side, and 5 for the frames on the west at the far end of the tabernacle. The center crossbar is to extend from end to end at the middle of the frames. Overlay the frames with gold and make gold rings to hold the crossbars. Also, overlay the crossbars with gold. Set up the tabernacle according to the plan shown you on the mountain. Now, this plan shown him on the mountain is interesting because this is one of those things where it makes it hard to tell. Like, are these instructions being recorded like in real time? He seems to have already seen these patterns. So when he's writing down these instructions afterwards, like, he's writing this after already seen the patterns to the, have they all seen them? Did Moses himself, was he the only one who saw the patterns? At any rate, he had a pattern. Someone had a pattern or a blueprint that we don't have. Make a curtain of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and finely twisted linen, with cherubim worked into it by a skilled craftsman. Hang it with gold hooks on 4 posts of acacia wood, overlaid with gold and standing on 4 silver bases. Hang the curtain from the clasps, and place the Ark of the Testimony behind the curtain. The curtain will separate the holy place from the most holy place. Put the atonement cover on the Ark of the Testimony in the most holy place. So there's going to be a little room within the tent where they're going to put this ark that they're making. Place a table, remember the table mentioned a few paragraphs ago, outside the curtain on the north side of the tabernacle, and put the lampstand opposite it on the south side. For the entrance to the tent, make a curtain of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and finely twisted linen, the work of an embroiderer. Make gold hooks for this curtain, and 5 posts of acacia wood overlaid with gold, and cast 5 bronze bases for them. That's a tent itself. It has a chamber within it. It has a tent within the tent where the most holy place is. This is actually pretty standard temple design in the ancient world. Inside the temple, you would have a room where your idols were, where your God was. God doesn't have an idol. They're not making an idol of God, but they're making this box, which they carry around with them with these poles, and carry stuff in it because it is a trunk. It is an ark. It can hold things. And God sits on top of it. But it's not God himself. It's not an idol of God himself. In the most holy places of other ancient temples, that's where you would find the gods. That's where you find the idols that represent the gods. And here, you're basically just seeing God's throne, his chair. God himself sits on top of it somehow. But it's not represented by an idol. Build an altar of acacia wood, 3 cubits high. It is to be square, 5 cubits long, and 5 cubits wide. Let's go ahead and look at this. 3 cubits high. 27:1 is about. Wait, that's not right. Where am I? 4.5 feet. 16. 4.5 feet. That's pretty high. You'd have, so the altar itself is about 4.5 feet high. Make a horn at each of the 4 altars. So at the horns and the altar, horns, generally speaking, in the Old Testament and throughout the ancient world, are a sign of strength. We're going to have lots of references to horns in days to come. It's going to be a common, I think it might be the first time we've seen it, but it's going to be a common image in our figurative expressions are poetic ways of speaking later on. And it basically represents strength. I don't know what these horns did as far as this altar goes. If it was just there as a design, or it was some sort of symbol betokening strength. I think there's somewhere else in the Bible that indicates they actually tied the sacrifices to the altar by fastening it to cords around these horns. I can't think of that off the top of my head where that might be. But at any rate, from this point going forward, whenever we think of a horn, we can think of a symbol of strength. Make the horn at each of the four corners, so the horns in the altar are of one piece. They're supposed to be fused into it somehow. And overlay the altar with bronze. Make all its utensils of bronze, its pots to remove the ashes, and its shovels, sprinkling bowls, meat forks, and fire pans. Make a grating for it. They're going to have fire here. They have to have a grating for it. A bronze network, and make a bronze ring at each of the four corners of the network. Put it under the ledge of the altar so that it's halfway up the altar. Make poles of acacia wood for the altar and overlay them with bronze. These poles are not gold like the ark's poles were. These poles are bronze. There's the color right there, she goes. The poles are to be inserted into the rings, and they will be on two sides of the altar when it is carried. Make the altar hollow, out of boards. That way it won't be quite so heavy. That would be a heavy altar. If that altar is 4.5 feet, let's see how high. Let's see here. 4.5 feet high by 7.5 feet long and wide. If that was solid, that would be one heavy altar, but it's not. It's going to be hollow. Make the altar hollow, out of boards. It is to be made just as you were shown on the mountain. That's a past tense verb there, at least in our English text. This indicates that Moses has already seen this pattern. So that the speaking of the instructions came afterwards. Almost kind of sounds like he's no longer on the mountain anymore, the way they say it. It's hard to say. Like I said, there is a mixture here. Because this is something of a diary and something of a recap. You know, how much of this was written at the moment, at the time, how much of it was then incorporated, rewritten later and incorporated in the text later on. I think it's, as a writer, this sort of thing interests me. Understanding how people communicate their thoughts. Now, the smart people today will tell you this is evidence that it was all written by a bunch of different people. Okay? The standard approach today is just to say, well, Moses didn't actually write this. Like, a bunch of people wrote this over the years. They just kind of made it up and fit it into a pattern as they went. I don't think that's accurate. I don't think that's fair either. I don't think that's fair to the original writer to say that he couldn't have all done this himself. There's always a hint of arrogance in those kinds of statements because we're assuming, 3,500 years removed from the fact, we're assuming that we know more than the actual guy at the time did. But also, just as a writer and as someone who has I have stuff in my filing cabinets at home that I first wrote when I was 6. It's like the shade of tense and meaning and nuance from when you're writing your own experiences and in real time, or then going back and talking about something else, like it's very subtle. And I think that we again, the smart people today will use that as an excuse to say, well, Moses didn't write all of it, but I think that's paying Moses, or whoever you want to believe wrote it, a disservice to think that, and it's putting ourselves on some kind of pedestal, because we can't conceive of that being done, so therefore we assume it just couldn't have been done. That's ourselves. That's us putting ourselves in as a standard by which everybody else should be accountable, and that's arrogant on our part. At any rate, this tense verb here in the English, at least, is were, which is past tense, indicating Moses has already seen these patterns and may not even be on the mountain anymore. Hard to say. Make a courtyard for the tabernacle. The south side shall be 100 cubits long, and is to have